Since 1991, the Global Fund has pumped millions of dollars in a variety of HIV-related activities in the Caribbean. How effective has that been in tackling HIV issues in the region? Have civil society organizations and vulnerable communities actually benefited from these funds? And what of the future of the Global Fund in the Caribbean? The Civil Society Action Team CSAT and the Caribbean Vulnerable Communities Coalition CVC gathered some representatives of Caribbean civil society organizations to discuss these issues. And here's what they had to say.
I am the Executive Director at Jamaica AIDS Support for Life, and I want to be here because I think I've gone a long way with the Global Fund, and as soon as they change I need to be fully abreast with it, and I'm expecting that at the end of this workshop we will have some regional calls as to how we intend to move forward with the Global Fund.
I'm Alfred Jordan. I'm from Cbo'S. I'm here today, as I should say, to send a strong message to the Global Fund because there's so much work to do in Haiti, and we need more funds, okay, to pursue our goal, to do everything that we want to do.
Craig Ricard, I'm from Antigua Resilience Collective. I think it's important to be here to plan strategy for when we have global funds again, that some of the mistakes that were made in the past are not repeated, and that as a Caribbean we can truly benefit, especially those persons who are really thinking can benefit from global funds.
Good morning, my name is Kenneth Van Emden. I'm from Suriname and United. It's an MSM organization in Suriname. My expectation is here that we, after this workshop, that we have a stronger Caribbean voice when it comes to dealing with global funds.
Good morning, I'm Desiree Edgehill. I'm from Artists Indirect Support in Guyana. I'm really happy to be here because I think one of the things that's missing where the Global Fund, and especially CCM's funds, we don't talk with each other about what happens in our respective countries, and I think this is a good opportunity. It's a good place to start and a good opportunity for us to continue to have dialogue.
Joe Didier from St. Lucia, representing AIDS Action Foundation Solution NGO, but also representing the OECS Regional Coordinating Mechanism for the Global Fund. The OECS currently does not have a Global Fund project, but the Ministers of Health in the OECS unanimously decided that the OECS RCM would remain post-Global Fund. And one of the reasons I'm happy to be here is that countries need to understand that the Global Fund may initiate processes, but we need to take those processes and make them our own. The other issue is the whole issue of funding as we go forward. And I'm saying that because I'm also part of the Caribbean delegation that goes to the Global Fund board meetings. Going forward as civil society, we cannot have too many expectations of funding if we don't put our houses in order. Also, if we want to go forward as tough, as little organizations, going to the Global Fund is not going to work. Because even while the Global Fund is making its funding model more user-friendly, they are putting more audit restrictions on the Global Fund. So how do you weigh that? And how, as civil society, we come to the table prepared to say to the Global Fund, look, we are a collective of civil society organizations from the Caribbean. This is what we have, and this is what we want.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marlon Taylor. I am representing the Sex Work Association of Jamaica. I think it is good that at the table there is one of the organization that is led by one of our marginalized groups that get funding or support from the Global Fund is present at the table to give its voice to the process, and that's why I'm here today.
Good morning, my name is Joan Burke. I'm from the Belize. I'm the Executive Director of the Belize Life Association.
And why I am here is basically I see myself as part of the Caribbean. And like Joan said, many donors are more performance-based focused now, and they're demanding more funds. And so therefore, unless we move, when we look at the Caribbean, we're such a small group as compared to the other regions. And so therefore, whatever we do, it must be in harmony. And we have to be able to understand the dynamics of our individual islands and countries, and then come together and make it one regional agenda. And I think that's what the donors are looking for. And so yes, whilst we're preparing in terms of the discussions for global fund, it is not only global fund, but other funding opportunities. And I think as civil society organizations, we are dealing with a group of persons who many of us are not comfortable with. So even in that light, it's almost like a strike is against us already. And so therefore, unless we can come together, plan together and take one agenda forward, we'll be in a better position in terms of selling our agenda to donors. So at the end of the day, I would really like for us to move here with a strong strategy as to how do we move forward, not only for global fund, but other funding opportunities that are out there.
Hi everyone. Alexandria from Antigua, representing Women Against Rape. I am here because, first of all, I was invited and I accepted the invitation. I didn't see the agenda before. Having seen it now, I am happy that I came because in Antigua, my organization wasn't really involved much in CCM. There was a nominee to the board, but following that nomination, there was the cancellation of round 11. So we never really got to participate fully. So this now will give me an opportunity to learn from my other colleagues who have already been directly involved and see how, as an NGO, CSO, how we can contribute to the process first in Antigua by bringing CSOs together and linking it with the next steps that come out from this meeting.
Good morning, my name is Nigel Maslin. I'm the president of GRACHAP in Grenada. I'm here at this meeting, or my hopes for this meeting is to reflect on something that Joan said. In dealing with Global Fund and other donors, it's a negotiation process. And what has happened in my experience over the years is that civil society and the countries that participate in the application process are usually caught unprepared. And because we're caught unprepared, we're at a disadvantage in our ability to negotiate. And we ultimately we end up kind of going along or signing up with whatever is presented in front of us. So I'm happy that we're having this meeting in advance now so that we can plan strategically as to how we're moving forward so that we can better negotiate and ultimately for the benefit of the constituents that we serve.
Global Fund proposal is not negotiable really because you write what you want, and once that goes to Global Fund, it's not negotiable. So that is why it's so important that the participatory approach is meaningful. So when you come to the table, you try to ensure that what you want to see there is there. However, there's a caveat, because Global Fund comes to the table telling you what they are going to fund.
Right.
So the way around this is to try to say the OECS, for example. We did a proposal for round 10. We recognize that the MSM issue was the issue we wanted to go after, but we wanted to ensure that there was treatment. So we used that in a roundabout fashion to encompass youth, etc. What did the Global Fund do? The Global Fund came back at us and said, PEPFAR is already providing this. And PANCAP is already providing this, not understanding the realities on the ground. I think our biggest responsibility here is to ensure that Global Fund understands our realities. Because let me tell you, I've been working with Global Fund since 2000, so that's 12 years. What I have come to realize is that the turnover in the Global Fund office is very quick. So your portfolio manager you have this year is not the same person that's coming next year or the one that's coming the following year. They believe that you can drive from St. Lucia to Belize, and you can drive from Belize to Jamaica. They don't understand that we are separated by water.
Over the 2-day workshop, participants were engaged in areas such as the Global Fund's 4-year strategy, its new funding model, the end-to-end approach and its vision for this approach, eligibility for the Global Fund in the Caribbean and how to apply, lessons from PANCAP, regional grant implementation, key populations mobilization, advocating around the successes, gaps, and lessons learned from the Global Fund, and to further develop strategies for the way forward.
Grenada has benefited tremendously from funds from the Global Fund. In 2008, my organization, GrantChap, the first grant that we had was actually from funds that were provided by Global Fund. Right now, most of the ARVs that are available in country are funded by Global Fund, and the Global Fund process has made it possible for marginalized populations and other groups to come to the decision-making tables and have a voice in terms of the development of policies and the implementation and implementation of programs.
Our country has benefited tremendously from the support from the Global Fund, especially in terms of HIV, AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis. In Ghana, tuberculosis is very important. Why for HIV? Most of the people who are HIV in hospital, at least about 80% of them do have tuberculosis. So we are able to benefit from a grant, both for tuberculosis and malaria. And those two have been very successful. Apart from the funding for health systems strengthening in Ghana, I think if the health systems are strengthened, then we are able to continue to work even after the funding has finished. So I think that's good for sustainability, and we got a grant especially for the strengthening of our health systems in Ghana. Apart from all the other work in HIV, in prevention, and treatment, funding the treatment from the Global Fund, it has been over years. That's why we in Guyana are able to give people free of charge to persons living with HIV. So we have benefited from the funding of the Global Fund.
Antigua and Barbuda has benefited from Global Fund in the sense that persons living with HIV were able to be treated. The other health issues were looked after. They were able to go to doctors and they didn't have to pay. They were also supplied with meals to ensure that they ate well. Global Fund, because of Global Fund, the National AIDS Program was able to have persons on staff who were paid by Global Fund. Also various projects that were implemented in Antigua and Barbuda in terms of working with sex workers, counselors within our school system, working with inmates population, working with a wide cross-section of vulnerable population. Antigua and Barbuda has been able to benefit from such an initiative, and also even we see persons from the vulnerable population that we were able to have various capacity building sessions where we have increased their knowledge, their advocacy skills, their communication skills, and so forth, and even sensitize law enforcement as it relates to the whole issue of stigma and discrimination, proper reporting and documenting when persons who are affected not only by HIV and AIDS, but because it may be their sexual orientation or the job that they choose. When they come in to have issues with the law, because of the training, police have been sensitized to work with them in a better framework.
Antigua and Barbuda has benefited in many ways in prevention, care, and treatment from the Global Fund. Persons have been able to access treatment and get tested, and also to have follow-up care. There is also the National Clinical Care Coordinator who attends to the needs of various persons.
Okay, Suriname has benefited out of the Global Fund in terms of getting free ARVs for people who live with HIV. Also, the strengthening of the National AIDS Program, and one of the examples that I want to highlight also is that a public awareness campaign has been held in Suriname, creating awareness about human rights and also HIV and AIDS, and to know your status in Suriname.
Hello everyone, I'm Brian Collier, Country Coordinator Mechanism. Jamaica has benefited from the Global Fund tremendously, has been a lifesaver both literally and figuratively for many Jamaicans. Jamaica being a poor country, we are heavily dependent on external funding, and the Global Fund has in particular been one of the sources of funding that has benefited our AIDS response tremendously.
Yes, we can say that the country has benefited from the Global Fund because they have free HIV treatment, okay? They have condom free, and we benefit also counseling and activities to sensibilize, okay, the youth, the people, okay, about HIV.
We said that there should affirm a place for CSOs in the response. That's what we need from governments. We need them to affirm that civil society organizations are part of the response and not lip service. Strategy. We said we know that Global Fund is doing, but to push the developmental approach to HIV/AIDS, addressing not just the health aspect of the disease, but the social aspect. And that will enable it to move away from a vertical program, especially in government. Then we push it again. Push country ownership of the response and to enable broader representation. There was this whole discussion about the government and I think it stemmed from a previous point, the government are not willing to partner with civil society organizations in tangible ways. So we're not seeing grant, we're not seeing subventions, we're not seeing any kind of true tangible support. Instead, what we're getting are calls to the table that come across as tokenistic, and sometimes the whole partnership is questionable. The benefit not so clear to civil society. It's more clear to the government when they see fit and to their advantage. Then we are at the table. I think this though is not something only for the Global Fund. I think we will have to share this, Mr. McKnight, with other international partners, like especially the UN is coming to mind. The US, who has been a real ally in this region through aid or their PEPFAR, those organizations that can help us to move some of these items forward.
As I just wrote down a while ago that Global Fund presents us an opportunity or a model. It's not the be all and end all of anything. And when we were inviting people, we realized that some countries will not benefit from the Global Fund in the foreseeable future. But the model of the integration of civil society that the Global Fund has has allowed us, and we have to remember that it came from us, you know. It's not that the Global Fund is sending something.
We cried.
We were the ones, civil society organizations around the world advocated for this kind of involvement. And so you're very right, if we can lobby for in-country partnerships to resemble this, who comes to the table, who is elected, nominated to come to the table to represent who, you know, who is speaking on our behalf, do we know that people are speaking on our behalf?
That's the thing.
You know, who? And so it's not a perfect one, but it's a very, very good one.
Something
that says
to learn
you
from.
can't do anything without this, you know. You can work. In some countries, what they're doing now is to take the CCM model as a way of managing all of the money that's coming into the country, you know. So the whole issue of having a multi-sectoral board, local board, that says this is where the money should be, these are the areas of concentration, you know, these are the public groups. It's a model, you know, it's a model. But I think at the very least, we cannot continue business as usual where people are called to a CCM, you know, because I like you, or because you can sing. Those days have to be gone. We have to take our stand. And most importantly, that the things that, you know, we spoke about the national aids, the strategic plans, all have us written in them. All of them have us written in them. But yet, as I said before, we are not working, our offices are closing, and we could go on and on. It has to be, it has to change. It can't be business.
Two quick things I would just like to flag. I want to insist on political will from the perspective that sometimes plan like our national strategic plan has been made, it's been costed, but there is no evidence to tell me if it has been approved by budget. And the same goes for our national action plan for the gender affairs division. They are beautiful plans. I believe both of them have been costed, but nobody can say if they haven't been passed at cabinet as yet. And what I understand also that some of the donor agencies are saying if your plan has not been approved by cabinet at the national level, then we're going to have difficulty in working with the country.
I know that when we started the deliberations, we had wanted to put this into a short window, and we wanted to do this in October. And it's changed, and just the flexibility that you were able to lend to us to make this happen is highly appreciated. This is one of the very first times that we have been able to come together as civil society around the Global Fund. We've had some times kind of tacked on to other meetings, but this is the first time. And we want to try to make it happen, to make it happen again. This is the second time. You're right. We want to be able to keep this momentum because, as you know, CDC is invested heavily in civil society's capacity to come to the table at least this, not only the Global Fund, we keep saying that the Global Fund has given us an opportunity right now, but to be involved in other such processes. And so we want to continue doing this. You know, I want to say that in many instances, money, we might not have the money to give out and to keep giving. One thing that we are wealthy in is the kinds of information sharing and the kinds of expertise around the region. And in some instances, that is far more important than the funding. What by that I mean, I'm not saying that we must work for nothing. I'm saying that if we can capitalize on some of these, it will put us in a better position for the next period. And so some of the things coming out of this and other such interactions have to be sending a clear message from the Caribbean that listen, it can't be just, oh, you can just classify us like this and expect that everything is going to be alright, because it's not, you know. things are shifting so rapidly. Our populations are changing and the needs are increasing, and it's important for us to respond accordingly. So thanks for coming. I'm very satisfied because the design behind this was that we've been able to bring together the people who know most about the CCM in the region, and I think we're hugely successful at that. I personally want to flag that the expertise is here in the room. I think we have some people in the room, and I'm going to say this without apology, who know more about the global fund than anybody else. And Joe, you're one of those persons, whether they like it or not. Candice, you're also one of those persons. And I'm going to highlight it only because they weren't born with information. They quietly read, put themselves out to get it. And as intimidating as the whole CCM process is, if we do that, we can move further.
The message I would like to send to Global Fund is that personally, we in Antigua and Barbuda, we have benefited tremendously from Global Fund, and I would like to see that Global Fund comes back on board so that persons who are really most affected and infected by HIV can have that sort of care, treatment, and support that they need, even as it pertains to stigma, discrimination, advocacy, and all these other issues that as a country we don't have the finances to tackle some of these issues. So having Global Fund would be a very good boost to the country, because even after Global Fund left, we saw the drastic change in our society, even the drastic change in persons, especially those who are living with HIV, because that care, treatment and support, psychosocial sessions, the dental visits and all these things, it was taken from them, and so we now see there is a huge gap left within our society. So I would like to just send a strong message that Global Fund was very important to us, and I would just like to see come back on scene where it could benefit the persons who really need it.
Firstly, I'd like to thank the Global Fund for the level of interest they have taken and displayed in the health of populations around the world. Secondly, I'd like to ask them to take a more holistic approach in the treatment, care, and support of persons who are impacted, infected, and affected by this HIV and AIDS epidemic.
I want to say that because of the Global Fund, we able to do a lot of work in our country, and we must give kudos where it's deserved. And I think the Global Fund, Guyana has benefited tremendously from funding from the Global Fund from its inception up until now for both all fatal diseases, HIV, tuberculosis, malaria, and we must say that. However, I think sometimes it gets cumbersome. The people who sit on the country coordinating mechanism are people who sit there voluntarily. And on all the work that has to be done, people are not happy doing all that work for nothing. Everyone has to live, and it's time consuming. And now that the Global Fund has asked for all these subcommittees, the government's committee, to look at your conflicts of interest and to look at your plans and oversight and that kind of thing, I think it's becoming more demanding. I'm hearing because of this meeting that we're here at, that things are going to be a little easier, but I still think it's cumbersome. Sometimes there's too many questions that you have to answer. If you can get around to them, you don't have enough time to answer all those questions. So I think it's really challenging. Even though we're thankful for all the money, I think we still need to look at the process and how we can make it simpler and easier to all concerned, especially those people who are volunteering in the process.
Two principal messages I'd like to relate to the Global Fund. The first one is to encourage them with these reforms that they're currently undergoing. I think that the provisions that they're making in terms of making the fund process more accessible to submitting proposals, and then subsequently more friendly in terms of implementation are all very sound moves on the part of the Global Fund. So we'll encourage them to continue with that process. The second thing I would like to really emphasize is the importance of involving civil society. I think the Global Fund has been key in bringing civil society to the table and insisting that civil society participate. And in the reforms that they're contemplating, I think it's very important to continue supporting civil society's place, particularly the role of the civil society in service provision to vulnerable groups, because the reality for many of us in the Caribbean is that if civil society isn't performing this role, nobody else will be. So it's important to support the participation of civil society groups.
The message I would send to the Global Fund is please try not to negate the importance of the Caribbean region, Jamaica especially. I understand that as far as our GDP and other indicators, we may be up a million. However, there is still a lot of poverty, there is still a lot of inequity in our society, and those who suffer the most from that are those who are most in need of the Global Fund's assistance. So please, I beg and beseech the Global Fund to try as best as you can to look out for those who most need the help. And in this side of the world, there is an abundance of persons who are in such a position.
Civil society plays a very important role in lives of people. And when I'm talking about people, I refer to men who have sex with men, people living with HIV and AIDS, sex workers, youth, and they have been doing a lot of work. I must applaud Global Fund for the work that they have been doing. A key element in doing the work by civil society is finance, and Global Fund has been helping out a lot of civil society organizations, and my message to Global Fund is that they should not stop but continue to finance this organization so that these organizations can continue to make a difference in people's life all over the world, especially in the Caribbean.
Okay, as the message I would like to send to the Global Fund is they ask the CCM, they ask that the civil society should be represented in the CCM, okay? But they have to make sure, okay, that the civil society, they benefit, okay, from the fund they have been sending in that country. Because as I told you before, we are in the CCM, okay, but we don't really benefit, okay, from the fund that Global Fund has been providing, okay, to Haiti.
The aid that Global Fund and other donors provides to small island states and regions such as the Caribbean is very important for us to be able to continue on the work that we've done. There's much more work to be done in terms of strengthening our health systems. One thing that I would encourage is to probably reassess the eligibility requirements. Right now I believe it is done mainly in terms of the GDP of countries, but maybe some other factors would need to be considered, such as distribution of wealth or accessibility of services, because there are some countries that are disqualified or maybe put in certain brackets based on the current criteria that is used. But the reality on the ground is that many of the constituents in these countries, services are not accessible to them, and the aid from Global Fund or other donors would be necessary for a lot of the work to be done and for the gains that have been made so far to be not available.
We focus my organization focuses primarily on gender-based violence with special emphasis on sexual violence. And one can never underscore the critical link between sexual violence and HIV, especially on vulnerable communities. In the Caribbean, there are many small island states
which, based on funding eligibilities, may have some difficulty. But we know that in the past, we have a very good track record. And as such, with CBC acting as an umbrella organization for civil society organizations throughout the region, we are definitely looking at strategies in going forward where we can benefit from Global Fund as small island states.
The Global Fund speaks of involvement and participation of civil society. But I think sometimes there's a disconnect because we need to facilitate the involvement of civil society. So it is taken for granted that because a civil society organization is invited to a regional or an international meeting, that individual can find itself there. That is not the case. It's a process of facilitation. And added to that, even if civil society is at the table and the organizations do not have the capacity to do what they can do, we are wasting our time. Talking from the OECS, I think it's critical that the Global Fund, as it moves into its new funding model and its country bands, recognize or continues to recognize the existence of small countries. And the OECS is made up of very small countries with low disease burdens, but we continue to be an area very vulnerable with respect to MAPS. And every effort must be made to ensure that our prevalence levels remain low, irrespective of that high vulnerability with respect to